We're talking about something called Lovify Your Life. And this morning, we introduced some parts of it with the attempt to combine the science with the scriptures. And it's not just the scriptures. We have an assumption that we are created beings, and there's a creator out there who manufactured, invented, created this human machine called the human body, right? And so here we are, body and mind, and we are creations of a creator. And so obviously we've been messed up. We've been messed up. Everybody in the whole world's messed up. We are certainly no utopia, that's for sure. And so there is this great controversy going on between good and evil, between good and bad, and that creates suffering. It creates disease, it creates conflict, it creates depression, it creates all the bad stuff. And God knew it from the beginning. And then some people will say, well, if God knew that was going to happen, why did he let it start? And my answer to that is because God knows how it's going to end. And so we just wait till the ending comes, and then we'll know that God had it all figured out right from the beginning. So anyway, that's enough to say for introduction. Any thoughts from this morning? Anything that struck you and say, yeah, that slide or that particular scripture or that story, here's what that means, or any questions that came up? Yeah, what do you got? Please, sir.
You're live.
We're live. Okay, great. Hey, welcome everybody out there in internet world. Okay, go ahead.
I love the transformation that you and what was the gentleman's name?
Bill. Mm-hmm.
That was amazing.
Okay.
Was an amazing story.
That story about Bill. Yes, I still remember Bill. I wonder how he's doing now. We went back. That was my first met him in 1991 or something. I went back about 95, so it's been quite a long time. But that does illustrate that community, relationships can heal and make a difference, right? So it does relate to that so much. And so cool. Anybody else? Yes, please.
So I like the ACEs part that you brought up. That was really good. I mean, like I just explained earlier, that
You went through
80% of them like that. Anyways.
Wow.
And I believe that in James 5:16, because a lot of Christians put that, they don't believe James belongs in the Bible. And confess your faults one to another. Pray for one another. That's really important. That you may be healed, and the effectuous fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. Now, we got to rely fully on Scripture, and some people just don't do that. They don't put the time in to pray and to read the Bible and meditate and discuss and reason together, right? So, and that's a big part of it. And then the fact that in my life, I was a meat eater like all my life, and even today I'm still at home, I'm still eating meat, and it's hard to put something that's been ingrained into you and trying to change bad habits for good ones, and that's a difficult process to do.
It sure is, yeah. I appreciate you saying that because, hey, we're all on our own journey, and there are so many good principles to learn, and some of them are just so foreign to the way we've lived our lives that we just can't adopt them overnight. It's just one step at a time, It's just you do you, and I do me, etc. Appreciate what you said about James 5:16. That changed my life, by the way. James 5:16, especially the second half where it says, the effective fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much, right? When I first read that, I thought, that's not for me because I'm not righteous. That's what I first thought. Then I realized, well, I don't need to be righteous. Christ is righteous, and he gives me that, right? So if we get our theology straight on that, then we can accept that Bible verse. And so I experimented. But, there's so many people in this world, especially in British Columbia, especially in Vancouver, that don't believe in it. It's hard. It's hard to take. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in church. They don't believe in Jesus or the Bible. And I was actually one of them. And so I hear God saying to me, why don't you just taste and see? God is saying, check me out, just to see if what I say doesn't come true for you. And that's what I did, and here I am today, some years later. So when I was a young man, I took the scientific approach. And the hypothesis was, which I didn't know was true, is that there's a God upstairs, right? There's a God out there, and he's got principles that make our lives work. And if we experiment with those principles, we can see for ourselves whether it's right or wrong, right for us, right? We can see that. We can check that out. We know if we feel better after 28 days, if we follow the principles that our Creator gave. But you don't even need to go by the Creator, just go by science. Most of the science, not all, but most, agrees with the full power principles anyway. It's just amazing. I was so amazed. Especially, and I'll wait, I'll talk about that book by Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris on ACEs, where you talked about ACEs. Look it up. There's a lot of good stuff on ACEs. And by the way, what does ACE stand for? Adverse Childhood Experiences. I'm going to talk more about that in a few minutes. Does anybody else have a thought or a question? Yes, please.
Just 1 second.
Here comes a microphone for you.
Yeah, I'm in a similar situation with my children as the story you described this morning with the mom, the sister, and the daughter, or the sister, and the daughter.
Right.
So I'm curious. I know that you counseled the sister to zip her mouth when things came
Zip her
up.
mouth, okay.
Zip her mouth. Well, you didn't put it like that, but just to not talk. And so her daughter talked for 6 hours.
6 hours, that's what she told me.
Are you, did she describe what it was like for herself during that 6 hours?
She did.
Was there some things that worked for her? Because I had one talk with my children, and I'm going to have another talk. And I was devastated the first time, and I don't want to be devastated again. And I don't think I will. I'll be a little bit better prepared. But is there, as you're sitting there listening, is there anything that you could
I can suggest just a
yeah.
few things. I'm not a counselor, so I'm maybe not the one to talk to about this, but I read a few things and I'll share what I know about it. First of all, that particular mother, and it's the sister who I know, that the mother, I only met her that once or twice, but the sister, I've known her for 25 years or more. And she said that her sister, when talking to her daughter, felt very offended and hurt and misunderstood. She felt that way. But she zipped her mouth, right? She didn't say, and she did do what I suggested, and I felt God was leading in this. I don't say this to everybody, but I just felt it was right for them. Is there anything else? Is there anything else? You've condemned me, you've shot me down. Is there anything else? I mean, you have to be pretty big to take that. But she was truly a loving mother. And she truly didn't want to see her daughter be hurt, even by herself. And so when she kept on saying that, like I said, in the 3rd or 4th hour somewhere, it must have been gone all day. I don't know if even stopped for lunch. I don't know that part. But then she began to, in a sense, depersonalize and separate herself from her daughter so she could then be empathetic toward her daughter's situation and then step into her daughter's role. And that's what she ended up doing, feeling the pain. Now, you as a mother, and we as human beings, we have an intent and we have an impact. Sometimes our impact is not what we intend. Now, this works in the business world as well. And I remember talking to somebody, and we had to let them go. No, we didn't let them go that time, okay, but another time. And I had to explain to them, I know your intent is good, but your impact is that you are intimidating this person, even though you don't mean to. So there's a difference between intent and impact, and usually we ourselves only see what we intend. I'm a good person. I mean well. But we don't often see the impact that we're having on someone else. And so that does take some work, I guess. Separation. And so what you're separating really is your feelings.
Yeah.
I mean, so that you don't get offended. Because offense, when we get offended, I don't know if I have a slide on this or not, but when we get offended, and I'm guessing all of us have been offended at one time or another, the activated part of our brain is the limbic system, especially the amygdala, which is on alert for being threatened, right? And that gives rise to the fight or flight syndrome, and everything else. Is more to it than that. So when that happens, the connections between our limbic system, which is the middle of our brain, to the top of our brain, which is the cerebral cortex, those connections start dwindling, which means that we don't use our reason, right? And so have you ever tried to reason with an angry child? It never works. It never will work, because the child is activated in his limbic system. So you say, let's take a break. And so 10 minutes pass by, or maybe the next day, I don't know, so that the electrical impulses in the limbic system of the brain die down to allow the freedom of connecting to the prefrontal cortex, which is the rational part of the brain. And so if we are in fight or flight, or if we are offended, it is hard to be rational. And when we're not rational with someone else, then we will come across as intimidating, threatening, whatever it may be. And that will do this. Two people, separation. The Bible says that sin separates us, right? Isaiah 39. So in a sense, we are separating ourselves from other people when we have an impact on them, when we're operating out of our limbic system and not the prefrontal cortex. So that's why God gave principles in the Bible to help us understand how to navigate all this stuff. I don't know, you just get me going now. I'll say one more thing. I learned this from Dr. Gabor Mate, who has written about 7 or 8 best-selling books. I read 2 of them, and one is on addictions. Dr. Gabor Mate is famous for working with addicts in Vancouver's downtown east side. And so he talks about the 2 parts of the brain. And really, our success or failure in life depends on what part of the brain rules. It does. And so it's kind of like I have my short-term desires for pleasure. I want this and I want it now. I want that ice cream. I want that candy. And I don't care what it does for me. Then we have our long-term goals. I want to be happy and healthy and successful. And the 2 often clash. And so our success in life depends upon what we do between the short-term and long-term goals. That's our success. So Dr. Gabor Mate gave this illustration. He said, I'm walking down the streets of Vancouver, and I see a mother pushing a child in a cart, in a baby carriage. And the child is 1 year old, and the child has a lollipop or a candy of some kind. Then Dr. Mate said, I love that kind of candy. I think I want to steal that candy. I want to take that candy from that baby and run off with it. That's what I want to do right now. My question to you is, how come he didn't do it? That's right, he's an adult. He does adult things. He's an adult. Now, here's what's going on. When we grow up and mature, we think in terms of the rational part of our brain that thinks in terms of what are the consequences of this. And then we act out what the consequences would be, not act it out, but we make our decision based upon the long-term consequences. That's what he did because he was an adult. His limbic system, his pleasure centers of the brain, his short-term desires wanted that candy. So when we're dealing with human beings, what part of the brain are we allowing to act on? The short-term pleasures, I'm going to get revenge on you right now. You insulted me, I'm going to smack you or something. That's the short-term stuff. But the rational part of the brain says, no, if you do that, there will be consequences and your relationship will suffer. And so that's what we're dealing with there. Anyone else? Any thoughts or questions from this morning? Yes, please.
The two brain system with the ladies and the men. How does that impact a lot of stuff? Because men do deal with things very differently from women. We know that.
Most my wife says.
Yeah. And you have to literally learn how to talk to a man as a woman, and women have to men have to learn how to talk to a woman in a way that she will actually go, oh, great, rather than, that was just terrible. You made me feel like a bag of poo. And that's not really how we want to be. So, I think that has to come into it some way. Aaron.
It does. I've learned from the Gottman Institute, John Gottman, and have you heard of them before? John and Julia Gottman. You can go online, check it out. They actually have a system of cards that help the man and the woman talk to each other with regards to listening skills and vocabulary. Here's how I'm feeling. I'll mention a little bit of that later on today. But that's where I would start with them. There's a little bit of oversimplification on this, however, that, yeah, men and women are different for sure, but there's a lot of similarity too. Men still have emotions and women still have rationality. So there's a lot of similarity as well. The left-right brain, again, a little bit oversimplified. The fact is both men and women use both sides of the brain. We do know, yeah, one dominates a little bit more than the other, but we can't even live without both sides of the brain. And there are some that do, where half their brain is taken out. It can work, but there are limitations. But I would start with the Gottman Institute. John Gottman, I was just listening to him a few days ago on YouTube. No, I took a course called The Power of Love. And they were interviewed. And that's where I'm getting this from. They were interviewed just last week. So when it comes to both men and women, that's one thing. Another thing was really funny. I read a book, must have been 20 years ago now, called Why Men Hate Going to Church. It was a very fascinating book. And I even have done seminars on that. I don't think I did anything here, but it was a long time ago. Why Men Hate Going to Church. I thought, I got to read that book because sometimes church is great, but sometimes it's, oh, please get me out of here. And part of it was that most times, at least in Christianity, church is designed to make women comfortable and to challenge men against what their desires. And so, as you may know, that worldwide, Christian worldwide, of all the religions in the world, Christianity is the only religion that has a majority women. Every other Muslim, more men, Jews, more men, but Christianity, 60% women, 40% men. And so what's going on there? There's got to be a reason behind that. And so one of those reasons is that if you take a look at the thermostat atmosphere of your church, is it geared toward pink or toward blue? And men usually, especially younger men, but usually, want independence, adventure, to save a damsel in distress, to be a hero, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Women, and again, I'm overgeneralizing. There's always exceptions. Want comfort and community and bonding, etc. I remember one time working with my wife, and I said, honey, I'm working on this machine. Can you hold the hammer for me, please? Oh, sure. Next day, we're out shopping. And she says, honey, I got to go try this dress on. Hold my purse. I'm going, whoa. What's going on here? Give me a hammer. I'll hold a hammer, but not a purse. And so anyway, that caused me to, that factored into, men and women think a little differently. With men, again, I'm reading from this book, and again, I'm overgeneralizing, perhaps oversimplifying, but men can work, especially men who are not church men. If you're in church, if you're a man in church, you're a little different. But outside the church, two men can be standing side by side. They won't look at each other, but they'll both look at the engine. Right? Women, they'll look into each other's eyes, right? They'll look at each other. Now, church is women trying to get men to look into each other's eyes. All right? Men don't want that. No. They don't want to hold hands or anything like that. Give them a hammer. Give them an adventure. Give them something to do. So anyway, that's a little bit on that. I didn't come here to talk about that, but since I read the book, I thought I'd share it with you. Anybody else? Anybody else? We're talking about love. Of course, men love and women love, and we have different ways to love and all that.
Well, it brings to mind Herb Larson, you know him, right?
I do.
And we talk about, when you're talking about trading places. And it's good that we can try and conceptualize that we're a woman, and what do we want? And that is the thing that most men do not do, and they need to do in order to have a good relationship in their own lives, right? So, and now I understand that now. I never did. Like you said before,
Hey, we're
years
growing.
in the past, women were only good for one thing, and that was it, right? And then after that, I was off on my own adventures, right?
Yeah, but then you grew up, right?
Yeah. And
Okay, good.
But here's what addiction did. It made me mentally immature. And it took a long time for me to become mentally mature again.
That's a very mature awareness thing to say, that I became mentally immature, and I feel the same way about myself. We all have to grow up in one way or another, so thank you for that. Should I get started on see what I got going on here? All right. So Lovify your life, the power of love versus the love of power. Take a look at this. Just go ahead and read that. All right. I know how fast you're reading by when you laugh. So I'll read it out for you. This is an emotional support dog after I got done telling it my problems. And he's going, huh? All right, now, here's a lesson from that one. We need tools. We got to help the poor guy out, and we need tools. What are we going to do to help the guy? And so I want to share some tools. A lot of what I'm going to be sharing, you probably know already, but it's good to kind of get it together here. So let's talk about the root cause of not only just food addiction, but addiction. Now, why do I go from the dog to this? There is a relationship, believe it or not. Addiction is, depending how you define it, in my book called Omit What is Harmful, that's the O of full power, the O. Omit what is harmful. We say, don't eat junk food, don't eat processed food, don't overdo this, and cut back on the alcohol, and cut down on the salt, and don't do drugs. We have all that stuff. But why do we do it? Just to say don't do it is not enough. So, and I had to look at myself too, because I love French fries, potato chips, ice cream, pizza, and whatever. I just love it. Why? Because it's high sugar, salt, and fat. I love that stuff. Now, when I'm talking about love, it's not agape love, it's eros love, if you want to know the Greek part of it all. And so, so you have to go back to, why is it that the pleasure centers of my brain are calling for ice cream and for junk food, when the prefrontal cortex knows that the long-term consequences is you're not going to feel very good after this. And my limbic system is saying, hold on a second, I'm going to feel good right now. Again, short-term, long-term. This is what we're dealing with our whole life through. And the more we can think with our long-term thinking process, the rational part of our brain, the more successful we will be, both in relationships and finances and health and all that kind of stuff. So addiction, depending on how you define it, and I'll define it loosely to say most of us are addicted to something. And I'll use Dr. Gabor Mate's definition. An addiction, you can go to the standard diagnostic manual, what's that called? The DSM-5, right? Statistical and the S, whatever, statistical, what? What? Yes, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, -5. There's a big, long definition of addiction on that one. And I looked it up, and I ranked so high on that stuff. But Dr. Gabor Mate, who is one of my heroes, suggest you read anything he wrote, said, if you make a decision to quit eating something or drinking something or using something, and you're unable to keep to your decision, that is one of the signs of addiction. That means we are allowing the limbic system of our brain to rule over the rational part of our brain. And so when that happens, this is part of what an addiction really is. And that leads many of us, millions, billions of us, down the wrong road. And we end up suffering in some way or another. So much of it. So the root cause, now I showed this already, I won't go through it again, but this is the ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and it leads to various things, including risky health behaviors, chronic health diseases, like pretty well everything bad. It's just amazing. So we got to get to the root cause. Now, if we go back to those 10 ACEs, those 10 experiences that a child has, and we can put them all in a bag and put one word on that bag, it would be disconnection. Every one of those. If you get abused or neglected, if you see violence in your family, it's all you're being disconnected. You're not bonding. You're doing the opposite of bonding. Yes, go right ahead.
Well, what would you say to someone who had all 10 of them?
The very first thing I would say is I'm sorry. That would be the first thing I would say. And the next thing I would say is, in the book written by Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris called The Deepest Well, she kind of answers that question, actually. Of course, when you have all 10, it's pretty intense. And here is this, I was going to say it later on, but since you're bringing it up now. What she said was, and then she started talking about what she was doing in her clinic to help people, adults who went through all this bad stuff as children. She ended up saying the things that I discovered for full power. For example, the F in full power is find your superpower so you can fulfill your purpose. And so she was teaching people about finding their purpose and helping them know their gifts and talents so they can find a purpose in life. And I thought, that's amazing, because that's what full power is about. And then she was saying, let them have a spiritual life. She didn't define it, whatever it is for you. And then she was talking about lovify your life, but she didn't use the word lovify. So she went through and she talked about eating well, eating foods that heal us and not harm us, all that. She went through, and that's why I quote the book so much, because the full power principles, which really come from God and the best of science, as I see it, is what she implemented without even knowing it was full power. And I thought, so I go to that book, buy the book, The Deepest Well, and I think you'll be amazed. And if you want, go to the YouTube, see what she says about ACEs. It's not just her, though. There's other people that talk about ACEs. And she herself was quoting the scientific researcher who discovered this, which she was using. She didn't discover ACEs. She used it and discovered it in the literature from someone else, and I really forget that name. Does anyone know? Anybody? Yeah, that's what I would say to go with. Otherwise I say I'm not a counselor. I don't know everything on that, but that's where I'd start. That's where I'd start. Yes, please.
Another saying that when I pray, I say, God, help me not live to eat, but eat to live. And I use that saying, but yet I don't quite live.
That's a very good saying. You're right, because the eating to live is, eating is a step for your long-term goal. But living to eat, eating becomes a short-term goal. And so going, again, short-term, long-term stuff there. So very good. So if all this is disconnection, what is the answer to help us with these behavior problems that we have that sabotage our relationships. And you know, what's the answer to that? Well, if disconnection is the root cause of, I have here food addiction because the last time I used this slide, it was about food addiction. But it's any addiction. If disconnection is the cause, what is the solution? I would think connection. When we look at the ACEs, and we can somehow find a way to combine them all into one word, disconnection, then we now know what the solution is. It's connection. But it's actually more profound than that, because the disconnection is not the disconnection of today. It's the disconnection of when we were a child, even 1 year old, even in utero, in many cases, that this disconnection happened there. Why? Because when we are a child, our brains are still developing, right? We're still developing our muscles and bones, etc., but our brains too. And part of our brains are made up of neurons. And neurons have endings. And the message to go from, like, even to just lift your hand or to eat or make a decision, the message to go from one part of our brain to another goes through these neurons. And at the end of the neurons are receptors for chemicals. And those receptors get developed as we develop from childhood. When we are abused or neglected, those receptors do not grow as much. They still grow, but not as much. So and I'm going to exaggerate now, I'm talking about particularly dopamine receptors. Dopamine is a hormone. Sometimes it's called the pleasure hormone. It's really more accurately the anticipation of pleasure hormone. We need dopamine to live. It motivates us to do things. We need it. But dopamine, in our pursuit of pleasure, short-term pleasures, that's dopamine prompting us to do it. Eat that, hit that person, get revenge, do it now, cross the finish line. It could be good or bad. But when we're little children, 1 month old, 2 months old, 10 years old, our brains are still developing, and that means our dopamine receptors are developing, and they don't develop like they should when we're neglected. Therefore, when we get older, in order to feel the same satisfaction level as the average person, we need to get more sugar, more alcohol, more drugs, just to feel the same satisfaction. Because if we don't, we walk around life feeling dissatisfied. So what do? We eat junk food. What do? We get drunk. What do? We put whatever, you're talking about whatever activity, pornography, gambling. It could be a substance or it could be a behavior. Whatever it is, it's the dopamine saying, get this and get this now. And when we try to do that to get that pleasure, the dopamine receptors themselves, there aren't enough of them. So what do? We need to get more of it. And that becomes an addiction. And so the dopamine, so therefore, when I see someone, let's just say they're a drug addict on the streets of Vancouver, I don't judge them. There's a book that came out that says, What Happened to You? It was written by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey, who went through her own junk when she was a child. And based upon Dr. Gabor Mate and Dr. Bruce Perry, who knew each other, it's often said that people look at a drug addict or someone who overeats or someone who's into gambling, and they say, what's wrong with you? Don't you know better? What's wrong with you? And so what Dr. Bruce Perry is saying, and Oprah Winfrey, and Dr. Gabor Mate are saying, don't ask that question, what's wrong with you? Ask instead, what happened to you? What happened in your past that gave you that pain that you are now trying to deal with today? that takes us a step back more toward the root cause of things, not just at the current behaviors, which are sabotaging relationships and our own health. And so that's very, very important. And so the dopamine receptors not being enough of them due to being neglected or abused as a child is part of the root cause. It's not that I'm a bad person, of a bad character. There's a cause that goes way back to our childhood. And so it gives me more compassion to somebody who is a drug addict or an alcoholic, like, say, my grandfather, for example. And I'll share that in the future if I ever get asked back here again. So connection is part of the answer. The National Academy of Sciences says social isolation, remember, connection, disconnection, isolation, that's disconnection, has been associated with almost or approximately 50% of increased risk of developing yet another disease, in this case, dementia. Social isolation, feeling disconnected, even lonely. Loneliness among heart failure patients has been associated with nearly 400% increase risk of death. Whereas, that's four times as much, right? 2 people have a heart attack, 2 people get heart surgery. One of those people is lonely, and the other one has good, strong social connections. Their recoveries will be different based upon a number of things, one of those things being how lonely they are. And so this is what it's saying here. Poor social relationships have been associated with a 29% increased risk of incident coronary heart disease and a 32% increased risk of stroke. Heart disease and stroke are pretty well the same thing, just a different part of the body. It basically has to do with blockage of the arteries here or here. And so what we're seeing here is that something you would never even think are connected. The feeling of camaraderie, the feeling of being loved and appreciated. That feeling, that sense of belonging, that's why it's in the habit trackers questions. It's there. It has an effect on our health. And here's just one example of that. So in short, social connectivity is vital to human health. Now, I've told a couple of dog stories before in this church, and I'm concerned about telling it again because you may have heard it before. I know, Don, you've heard the story, but I kind of feel I need to. I can put this here. There's 2 dogs. There they are. I've known them both. And I'm going to tell you 2 stories. I'm going to ask you this question after the end of it all. What made the difference? Okay, story number 1. Here's a dog. Okay, where I'm from, that's a dog. No, it's not. I know it's a bear. How many people here ever walked through the woods and you saw a bear? Raise your hands. You saw a bear. Okay, question. Did that bear run away from you? Yes. No. Yes. No and yes. Okay. So we got yeses and nos. Now, if that bear was a mother bear with cubs nearby, would that mother bear run away from you? No. We're pretty sure about that, aren't we? Okay, there's a reason why, right? There's a reason why. Here's the mother bear. She does not look like she's running away at all. And so I'm going to now ask you, what's the difference between the 2, but not quite yet, because now I want to start with a dog story. It began at Berman University a long time ago when I first went there as a student, and I lived right here in the boys' dormitory. I was what they called a mature student. Little did they know. However, I went there at 20 years old. I had already gone to university before, and now I found God and went to find out God at a godly place. So here I am. And so what I used to do is I go to the library and start going for a run. I wanted to get fit. I wanted to get in shape. So I'd time myself, and the library was right here. So I'd stand right there and look at my watch, have a timer on my watch or something, and I press the button, and off I go. So I go down the road, and I get down, and here's what it actually looks like there. So going down the hill back at that time. And however, I only did that at nighttime. And so you can hardly even see it now, it's so dark, but it's at nighttime. And that is, I don't know, Rosedale Avenue or something. And I'd be at 10:30 at night. All my studies are done. And I didn't bring a flashlight, should have. And so I'm going down, and I get to the main road, and turn around and come back, and I time myself, and the first time I did this, it took me 21 minutes. I thought, oh, that took me 21 minutes to do that. And then I did it again and again. I got it down to 19 minutes. So I was proud of myself, 19 minutes. And then about maybe a few weeks later, really worked hard, 17 minutes. I felt like I was a real athlete now. 17 minutes. And then this one time, I was coming back down the road, and I met this dog. Let me see if I can put him on the screen. Here he is. He jumps out at me. He's jumping out at me. So I'm going down. How many heard this story before? Raise your hands. You heard this story? Yeah, okay. Only one. That's good. I'm going down the road. I'm jogging. The dog jumps out. Now, immediately, my limbic system kicks in. My amygdala especially. Fight or flight. This is danger. You have to do something quick without even thinking. And so I remember I was going like this, and I went just what I did. And I just took off really fast. All right, and I went down to the bottom of the road, and then I looked up. Let me see if I can show it to you here. I looked up, and here it was at the corner. The dog was behind me, and that dog was the ugliest looking thing, with slobber all over his glistening teeth. His tail was up straight, his back was up, his fur was coming out. That dog was growling like he meant business. This was not a friendly dog. And I'm pretty sure it was late at night, so it was time for his midnight snack. And I was going to be his midnight snack. And I did not want to be a midnight snack, especially for an ugly dog. And so I get down to the bottom, and I could really hear his, what is it, claws, fingernails, what are they called? His nails on the cement, the concrete. I could hear them. And he was only like 1 foot away from my foot. If I slowed down, he was ready to grab my calf. So I was running like mad. And so I get to the bottom of the hill, and now I had to make the turn to go up. Now, I measured it afterwards. From that spot to the university is exactly 1 kilometer. That's how long. So I now had to run uphill for 1 kilometer, making sure the dog wasn't going to get me. And I was running really, really a lot and fast. And so I finally did it in 15 minutes flat. I was so proud of that time. I told everybody I did that run in 15 minutes flat. I said, "You bet you can't do it. I can do it." You know. And so I tried and tried. I could never get that fast again. Like I needed the dog to go that fast. That's how much I needed. Now, the moment that I saw the dog, and I did not even have a choice, because I wasn't working from my cerebral cortex, I was working from my limbic system of the brain, to fight or flight. Well, you know which one I did. I took off in flight, okay? Now, that's one dog story. Here's another one. It just so happened that down that road there at Berman University, there was a young lady whose name was June. And she lived in an apartment. And every time I jogged by, I kind of looked to see if she was there. She was never there, or the lights were off or something. Well, now I'm married to her. And she is a principal of a small school in Botwood, Newfoundland. And I'm a young pastor just starting out. And before she goes to school, her and I go jogging in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. She's really dedicated. So was I. So here we are. Okay, that's not really us. If that was us, I'd be in front. No, just kidding. And we're going along this white picket fence. And it's early in the morning, so really it's dark. The sun is just about to rise. And if I can imagine, put it like this, Just say, this is her in pink, I'm in blue, and we're jogging down the road this way. There's a dog right here. These are white picket fences, here, here, and here. Now, I was taught that when you're walking your girl, you walk on the outside and she's on the inside. Have you been taught this, gentlemen? You're going down the road. You don't let your lady walk where the cars are, just in case this is the universal truth. You have her here, and just in case a car comes along, it's just more gentlemanly for you to get hit by the car than to let your wife get hit by the car. It's just being a gentleman. She'll really appreciate you when she visits you in the hospital. So there you go. And so here we are, we're jogging along, and then I hear the dog, and I look, and I faintly see the dog. It's really dark, so this is kind of bright in this picture. But I was thinking, that dog has got a deep voice, like, roar. No, roar, roar. You know what I mean, right? Roar. Make a deep voice dog sound. Thank you very much. All right, and he is a German Shepherd. He is like 10 feet long, 6 feet high. I mean, this is a big dog. And I was so relieved to know that there was a fence there. And then I saw him jump the fence. I said, oh, this is not looking good. This is not looking good. That dog, I knew you'd want to see a close-up, so here he is. So that dog is now, he jumped the fence. And so here I'm coming with my wife this way. The dog is now coming this way. The dog has one more fence, and then right here, the dog's going to jump that fence, and he's going to kill my wife. He's going to attack my wife. It was just that way. And so I saw this was happening. So watch the screen. Watch the arrows in particular. Here's what I did. Look. You see that? Okay? So I make the switch with my wife. The dog's over here, my wife is here. I back up and go like this. So now my wife is here, and I'm ready to take on the dog. Now, I'm going to take what happened in a split second and expand it, just so we can talk about it. I didn't have time to make a decision. That's what the limbic system does. It doesn't decide, it just does. The prefrontal cortex decides. But I wasn't activating that. I was fight or flight. So guess what one I was going to do? I was ready to fight. And I said in my mind, I know there will be blood. It'll be my blood, but I guarantee there'll be the dog's blood too. I was thinking violently because I'm not going to let that dog touch my wife. That's how I was thinking. Now, if that were a movie, I'd be like a hero because I was really, I was courageous, fearless. I had no time to fear. I just did it. Now, interestingly enough, they say that dogs can smell fear. I can assure you the dog smelled no fear coming from me at that time. Because as soon as I made that switcheroo there, that dog stopped short, I actually saw his paws scraping along the grass, coming to a full stop, just a couple of feet on the other side of the fence. So that dog, now that I made that switch, and I'm ready to take on the dog stopped. Now, I didn't think, here's a good opportunity for me to impress my wife. I did not think that. Or should I do this and get hurt? Or should I let my wife get hurt and then I get off scot-free? I wasn't thinking any of that. I just did that. Now, here is the question. I just told 2 dog stories. One story where the fight or flight kicked in and I took off in flight. The other story, fight or flight, I was ready to fight. And the second story was a bigger dog. Remember, I said he was 10 feet long, right, and 6 feet high. That's a big dog, big German Shepherd. And so here is my question for you. Now it's time for you to talk. What made the difference? Tell me. Go ahead. Patrick, I think that's you.
First one was flight.
Flight.
Flight. And the second one was you were trying to save your partner, so you.
There you go.
So you weren't afraid for yourself. You were worried about your wife.
Okay.
So that you were in a saving mode, whether you realized it or not. You're trying to protect your wife.
Thank you.
So that was self-sacrifice.
Thank you for that. I like that word, self-sacrifice. I should tell my wife that. So now, anyone else? What he's saying is right, but let's add to this. Yes,
Okay.
please.
No, you said it for me. You said it.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Two different circumstances.
Yes.
One, you had no choice.
Ah.
The other one, you did have a choice.
So which one did I have no choice?
With the dog on the fence,
All right, no choice.
no choice. You had to fight.
What made me not have any choice?
That dog was clearing that fence. It was going to attack either you or the woman or your wife, and the other one, you had the opportunity to leave.
I see.
So you had no choice.
No choice.
To flee. So you
Couldn't
faced-
flee, so bam, I had to deal with it.
You had to go square.
Thank
around
you
with
for that.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? Appreciate that. Could we have turned around? Well, first of all, I'm only thinking back with my rational mind to say, no, he would have just jumped the fence and chased us. But, of course, I don't know there at the moment. Now, I had no choice. What created the intensity of that no choice was the presence of my wife. When I was alone with that dog at night, I had a choice. I could run or I could fight the dog. I had a choice. But I didn't even think to choose. I just ran. It's just the first thing that came to my mind. So as I look back on it, what helps us with the so-called choices, remember, when our limbic system is at work, there's no choice. Our rational mind says there's a choice. But my rational mind takes a split second longer than my limbic system to act. So what was happening, as far as I could tell, is that in the presence of love, you default to courage. It's just a default. You just do it. But when there is no love, in other words, I had no love there that night with that mangy mutt there, no love at all, you default to fear. Because what's happening in the limbic system of the brain is either courage or fear. Now, there's a Bible text. Have you ever heard of it before? In 1 John. It says, perfect love casts out fear. So here's some psychology right straight from the Bible, that love casts out fear. And if I could maybe put it like this, imagine love on one side of a seesaw or a teeter-totter and fear on the other side. So as fear goes up, if we see a snake in the grass or someone is going to hit us or there's something threatening, there's immediately fear response. And as soon as that happens, love goes down. Love goes down. But in the presence of love, in the presence of my wife and that dog coming after her, I kind of felt like I had no choice, even though I wasn't choosing. I did choose. I obviously chose. I chose to fight the dog. But I didn't feel like I could deliberate over it, if you know what I mean. So as love goes up, fear goes down. So fear is anything like anxiety to sheer terror. What else is fear? I mean, there's a whole range of what could be fearful. When that is the most pressing thing in your life, love does not have a chance to do its healing work. So what we want to do is focus on the love, the commitment, the relationships, and when we do, the fear, the anxiety, the terror, whatever it is, that goes down because the Bible principle says perfect love casts out fear.
All fear.
All fear even. The Greek word cast out is ekbole, ek meaning exit, ek. It spits it out. Love spits out fear. That's what love does. And so that's what's happening here. So now let's take this young girl. Maybe that's you or someone you know. You see that before her is a challenge. That could be any challenge that you have. Maybe you're challenged with something in your life right now. Or maybe you know somebody who is challenged. So this girl represents a challenge that she must meet to get advancement in her life. You can see that she has to make that jump. What will help her make that jump, what will help her advance her life, what will help her grow, developmental growth, will be whether, here she is jumping, she's in the context of love or in the context of fear, the context of anxiety, the context of loneliness, isolation, depression, versus the context of love and bonding and togetherness. Do you see that there? So in the context of love, this young lady, courage rules. Because love gives you courage. I had courage with that German Shepherd because I had someone I loved right there. The atmosphere that I was in was an atmosphere of love as we were jogging together. There's community, there's bonding. We're husband and wife and all that. And so courage rules. But it's not just that. It's also motivation thrives. Motivation is what we need to make the next advancement in life, to get that degree or to try new habits or move to that new place or try that new job or take that new risk. You need to be motivated. In the context of love, we have more motivation. Sometimes if we're alone and we're alone for a long time, we're not motivated to do very much. But we have someone we love, we get more motivation going, okay? And so that can mean 1,000 different things when we're motivated. And one last one, in the context of love, the body heals. It makes a difference in the immune system, stronger. It makes a difference in the endocrine system, that's the hormones, where healthy hormones are ruling. It makes a difference in the brain, in the neural system, the nervous system. It makes a difference in the context of love. And so you can see why the Lovify your life, that principle, the L in full, F-U-L-L, has to be in there. You cannot have a health program without having love in it. We can talk about eating broccoli, and we can talk about cutting out high sugar, salt, fat, which we should, but if we don't talk about love, we've still missed out on something. Does that make sense? This is what we're going here. And so we have to deal with not just the goals. We have a goal. We have to deal with what habits are we choosing to start. And it takes, I may as well tell you, you probably heard it takes 21 days to start a new habit. That's not true. It takes 21 days to start a new habit if it's an easy habit. But it takes between 18 and 254 days, depending what habit it is. On the average, 66 days to turn a behavior into a habit. What's a habit? It's something you do you don't even think about. And that's where we want to be for good habits. Unfortunately, we're there with the bad habits. They're automatic. It's so easy to do the bad habits. So easy. So to change from a bad habit to a good habit, it takes energy. But only for that 66 days, or the 18 days, or the 200 days, whatever it is. And during that time, that's when you get your purpose in line, you get your friendships going, you do the easy stuff about what eating right and all that. You pull it all together as best you can because you want to go from using your prefrontal cortex, right up here, to using your basal ganglia, which is in the middle of your brain. To use your prefrontal cortex uses up 20 times more calories than the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia is where habits occur. You do things without even thinking, it's so easy. You're just running on autopilot. It's great if it's good habits. But for you to make a decision, to do this and not that, well, you really want to do that, but you should do this, that takes 20 times more energy, literally 20 times more calories used up in the brain to make a decision versus going on habits, which no decisions are made. So therefore, it takes a strategy, and the strategy is following the full power plan. I'm not saying that so you to get the book. Forget the book. Just do the principles. That's all you need. Go to the website, get it for free. Yes?
So someone told me one time, reading takes more energy, a physical book, rather than just watching someone talk to you on a screen.
It's true.
And not only that, the bad light that comes off it as well.
Reading also forces you, in a good way, to use your noggin, which makes you more, what's the word? The more work we take to input information, the more likely it'll stay there, and we can retrieve it whenever we want. So yeah. Yes, go ahead. Coming. Microphone coming.
Thank you. On what you were sharing just before that. Oh,
Right up there.
hello,
Yeah.
hello.
There you go, yes.
What you were sharing just before that brought to my mind that my chiropractors said that always would share that the body heals itself, but again, they also guide the people that come to them, and some won't even treat people who are not healthy eaters or who are not trying to improve their diets, because diet has a huge influence,
True
a
enough.
huge effect on
Right.
our bodies and our brains. And the other thing was that, it was the most important point they would share. Retracing. What a chiropractor, of course, has a lot to do with the spinal cord, and the spinal cord is a housing for the entire nervous system of the body, and so it's very crucial and important. And there's a term used called retracing, that when adjustments are made and when a person is trying to make improvements on themselves, their bodies, their souls, they call it retracing, and that it takes, they said, consider how long it took for that injury. It might have been instant, like a car accident, and boom, you're injured, or like the severity of the injury, or maybe it was over a span of 10 years where you were just always doing this one thing, and then finally your organ just broke down or whatever. But they said in chiropractic, they understand that that's a huge step in healing, but that it takes way longer to heal. Like the healing process is like a reversal of the damage done, and that it takes a long time for that healing to happen, which is a reversal of the injury or the pain or the illness, whatever. So hopefully that's a bit helpful to you all.
So thank you, it is helpful. It teaches us we should be patient, but keep at it, you know. So two things that you said. One was some doctors, or a chiropractor that you know, said, I won't even take on a patient unless they're eating right or something. There's something to that, because if we're only going to reharm ourselves, why bother getting healed if we're only going to harm ourselves the next day with whatever we eat or drink or whatever? That's one thing. Also, yes, the body does heal itself, but in most cases we get in the way of that. So we need to allow the body to heal itself by feeding the body the oxygen and the nutrients that it really needs to get to that damaged part, whether it be a nerve or a blood vessel or a bone or a muscle or an organ, whatever it may be, so we can get the nutrients there. Because when the body gets the nutrients through drinking enough water and eating whole foods, plant-based, etc., then the body can heal itself. But without that, the body can't heal itself. It needs to have ours to help. And the the principles, of course, come from our Creator. He made us. He knows what damages us, and He knows what heals us. I think it's actually wonderful that we have that. It's actually quite a good message that helps us, and we can help others with it. Anybody else? All right, should we go on? All right, take a look at what it says here. Love releases chemicals in the brain that contribute to life vitality. So let's just know that having love. So we need love. Now, sometimes we say, I don't have love. I want more love. Yes, we need to figure out how to do that. But maybe I can illustrate at least with showing this wonderful building. What do you think of that building? Isn't that inspiring? That's ugly, isn't it? That's dark, shadowy. There's nothing. You know what that building is? Yeah. Where? In Victoria. Doesn't look all that good, but look when you add love to it. Now, look at that. See, love switches on the power switch. You put the power switch on, and now you've got a wonderful tourist destination, which I always used to do that when I lived in Brentwood Bay, just down from Victoria. And I used to love to go see the lights on the Parliament building there, or the legislature building. So it's wonderful. Love switches on the power switch. And in the context of love, it not only gives us the power to have courage, it gives us the power to resist temptations, which we'll talk about next time I come. If you want, email me. I'll give you a document of Ellen White quotes and the Bible quotes on how to overcome a temptation. 25 of them. And the big answer is, I'll tell you ahead of time. The best way to overcome a temptation is to focus on something else positive. And the temptation kind of dies away of neglect. That's the overall thing we want to do on that one. So now, I talked about Harvard before. I'll talk about it again. This is a study that was done. It started in 1938 when John F. Kennedy was a student at Harvard. He was a sophomore at that time. And they wanted to do a study they called the Happiness and Longevity Study. And they studied the same kind of thing that Sean Aker tried to do, the last one I told you about. What causes someone to thrive? And that was at Harvard. What characteristics do you need to have so that someone could predict to say, yes, that person is going to be successful? What are those characteristics? So that's what they were doing here. And so they studied fame and fortune, social class, cholesterol levels, IQ levels, personality, even their genetics. They studied it all. And they've been doing this study. It's still going on in the year 2026. And they started in 1938. Obviously, the same people they started with have died, but they're carrying on with their children and their grandchildren. This is called a longevity study. And so, and every 5 years, they will actually call up these people and have in-depth interviews and ask them about every detail of their lives. Everything. Finances, relationships, divorces, what they're eating, everything. And they're really trying to figure it all out. After reviewing tens of thousands of pages of data. We don't need to do this. They've already done it for us. They found that none of these things predicted health, happiness, and longevity. None of them. I'll go back. Here's what they were studying. Fame, fortune, were they rich? Were they wealthy? High social class, low social class. They were studying the third-year students at Harvard and compared them to the poor boys, they're all boys at the time, of Boston. So the poor boys of Boston who weren't going anywhere in life, it looked like, compared them to these high and mighty Harvard students. That's what they're doing. That's how they started it. And so they looked at their social class, their cholesterol, everything else. This is what they looked at. And so, second paragraph. The top predictor of health, happiness, and longevity was close relationships. After, 80 years? Millions of dollars put into this, hundreds of scientists, and they narrow it down to this one thing. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't need to spend the time or the money. You now have the answer. You now have the answer. Close relationships, the question is, how do I get them? At least you know what your goal is now, right? You know what your goal is. It is to lovify your life, that one of the principles of full power. Here's another example of what they found. I'll read from here. The people who were the most satisfied in their relationships at the age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. 30 years later. And there, I don't know if it's a causal, but certainly a correlation. They're 50 years old. They're asked about, are you happy in your relationships? Do you have love in your life? Have you lovified your life? Do you have the capacity to love others? Are you receiving love from others? Okay, at 50 years old, ask them these kind of questions. 30 years later, those people are the healthiest. Less heart attacks, less cancer, less depression, less obesity, less whatever. Interesting, don't you think? I mean, we're finding out there are causes and effects that we didn't know about. Like, who would have thought that until they studied this out and they figured it out for us? Relationships matter that much. Through all the years of studying these lives, one crucial factor stands out for the consistency of its and power of its ties to physical health. Physical, your body. Mental health, your brain and how it interacts with the body. And longevity, how long you live. Well, good relationships. Comes back again. Good relationships. In fact, good relationships are significant enough that if we had to take all 84 years of the Harvard study and boil it down to a single principle for living, okay, now we take those 9 principles of full power. What's the one? What's the one that we start with, that we go with? The one that if we did it would affect all the other ones. Okay, so boil it down. One life investment that is supported by similar findings across a wide variety of study, it would be this. Good relationships keep us healthier and happier, period. Does that make sense? Have I convinced you yet? All right.
Another
Yes.
key word, consistency.
Yeah, good word, consistency. Not up and down, but yes.
Keep it up.
Keep it up. Anyone recognize this guy? Who is he? What's his name? That is Dick Van Dyke. How old is he there in that picture? Yeah. He may be 99, but he's about to have his 100th birthday. We know because it's on the news, all over the news a few months ago. He turned 100 years old. What's your secret, Mr. Dick Van Dyke? You ask, he's happy. He's serving other people. He's still dancing with his wife. All that kind of stuff. That's what he's doing. He's lovified his life. He's lovified his life. Here's a man, 100 years old. Used to be a professor at Loma Linda University named John Scharfenberg. In this picture, he's being interviewed by a journalist who's asking him, what's your secret? You're 100 years old. How can you live so long? He gives his answer. I only eat 2 meals a day. I don't eat anything past 2 or 3 o'clock in the day. Eat nothing at nighttime. Drink water all the time. Going for a walk all the time. Plus, he's happy. He's always laughing. He's always laughing. A merry heart does good like medicine. This guy, he was actually, you know what? I'm on the health committee team for the British Columbia Conference. We talked about getting him to come to camp meeting. But then we thought, is he even going to be alive when the time camp meeting comes? We didn't know, so we didn't ask him. But as far as I know, I think he's still alive at 104. I don't know. I haven't heard that he died yet. But he is on his way, after this interview, he's on his way to, like, I don't know, some other country in Europe to do health talks. He's flying around the world in an airplane at 100 years old, telling people how to live to 100 years old. One of his answers, happiness, joyfulness, being a positive person, having good relationships. Yes, the food matters, the exercise matters, the sleep matters. It's so true. But make sure we include lovify your life. I like this one. In one research study, researchers gave volunteers a survey to measure levels of happiness. Then they injected them with a strain of a flu virus. Mean. Of course, they did it with the choices there. A week later, okay, they get injected with flu virus. A week later. The individuals who were happy before the start of study had fought off the virus much better than the less happy individuals. When we have love in our lives, when we have positive relationships, they create cheerfulness and joyfulness that gives our bodies the strength to fight off diseases. Okay, I'm what's the word? Exaggerating or generalizing here when I say diseases. Here it was the flu virus. Here it was the flu virus. So it is so cool, isn't it? So when you think about what you want to do, measure yourself on all these principles. And again, go to fullpower1.com and you can download this for yourself. But where are you when it comes to all these things? And we're talking about this L. Where are you at a 1, 2, 3, or 4? Where are you along that way? What number would you put there? Add them all up, see what you get out of 100. And now you have your score of 100. Then you start the full power plan. Here's where you were before. Maybe you got up to here. And they do the full power plan, 28 days. You're up to here. You get a silver medal or something like that. And so that's kind of what we want to be able to do. Continuing on with that study, though, it says here, the research found that loneliness kills. If you're lonely, first of all, I'm sorry. But get into your prefrontal cortex. Say, you know what? I'm lonely. What do I do about it? Because I need to do something about it. I'm lonely, right? It's as powerful as smoking or alcoholism when it comes to its effect on our bodies. So if you want, you can read a book called A Cry Unheard, The Medical Consequences of Loneliness by James Lynch. Psychology Today has a lot of stuff out. The Loneliness Cure talks about that, how to make connections that count. Loneliness kills. I'll just skip this part. Go over to, here we go. Which one are you? They're all happy. This is the environment that we want to be in a lot of the time. Now we know that reality is part of the world and suffering is in, we know that. But if we can strategize, what can we do to be like one of these people? What can we do on that? Any thoughts or doubts or hesitations or questions before I go on? Yep.
So we've had the 8 natural health doctors.
Yeah, New Start.
New Start. Where does connection, I understand trust in God would be the component for God's love to us. So then where would the connection with other people be in that acronym?
It's not there. That's why you need full power. So yeah, New Start is great. More for the physical plus connection to God. But it does not include all the pillars of lifestyle medicine, including social connection. That's why we need another acronym called Full Power. There's lots of acronyms out there, but Full Power is an acronym that incorporates everything you need and nothing is left out. It also, we find that in the Bible as well, and the Spirit of Prophecy as well. So we get the New Start acronym from a book called Ministry of Healing, page 127. It's all there. Wonderful. But there's other things too that are not on that page. And that's what's being added into Full Power. And a lot of that is the psychological part of it, the FULL part as well. So any thoughts on that? Is that okay? Make sense? Let's get to the do's and don'ts right away, and then we'll take off. So here we do. Do's and don'ts. So hopefully I've convinced you, and I don't think you needed any convincing. You knew this already, really. We're just reminding each other of this, that love is important. Love is so important, it even affects our physical health. That's how, if we don't have love and have rejection all of our lives, we could even die 20 years sooner than normal. So love is that important. So what do we do to get it? Okay, here's some things to say in a disagreement. Read this in some article before. So you're in a fight with somebody, you don't like the fight, but you got to fight because they're wrong and you're right. So what do you say? To keep the relationship above you being right. My wife and I have all these kind of talks all the time. And I don't say, I'm not being defensive, I'm just clarifying. That's what I say. It doesn't work though. Anyway, say you're right about, and pick something they're right about. Pick something they're right about. Or say, I'm sorry for, and pick something that you are indeed sincerely sorry for. and this will bring separated people back together. Or what I need is, that gives a goal to the other person. What I need is. Not say what I need is for you to shut up. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Saying what I need is, I need a break from doing the cooking today because I'm exhausted. Could you help me with, something like that. Either we go out or you make the meal or whatever it may be. What I need is. I hear you saying, did I understand that right? I really like this one. Here's what I hear you saying. Did I get that right? And that moves us from the limbic system to the prefrontal cortex. Okay? It stops the feeling of threat. I need to defend myself. She's wrong. She's got to be told what's what, No, we got to go, here's what I'm hearing. Am I hearing you right? And that gives the other person a chance to say, no, you kind of got it wrong on that part. It's not me against you, it's us against this problem. I like that one too, because it separates the problem from who we are. I think we should take a break and come back in 10 minutes. This is where, if the argument is heated and tempers are flaring, especially with a child and a parent, you cannot rationalize. It is impossible to use rationality with someone who's angry. It cannot be done because the activity of the brain keeps the activity from the rational part of the brain from happening. So it cannot, physiologically speaking, it can't be done. So recognize that. And just say, let's calm down and come back 10 minutes later or an hour later. Getting back on track with you is my priority. That tells the other person that you're fighting with that there's a higher priority here than just us here today. And my wife and I, we say this all the time. We could be arguing, we could argue a lot, but after we argue, we will kiss and make up, we love each other, and it doesn't matter. We'll pray to God and say, God, thank you for my wife, could you please fix her? And, and my wife saying, I will do this, and I actually have said that to God, and then she what do you think, and then she'll say the same about me. We have a good time on that, so I'm just saying that we understand that we have disagreements, but there's an overarching appreciation of the other person. That's, I guess, is what I'm saying. We've been married for 41 years. We're gonna give it another year to see how it goes after that. And then thank you for listening. Saying, one of the successes, this is from John Gottman, one of the characteristics of 15 characteristics of successful relationships is that the people are always saying thank you to each other. And they could have done it like every day for the last year. They still say thank you. They still give hugs. They still say I love you every day. And the hugs last a long time. They still have kisses. And they still have little teasing. This is everyday habits, like you say, consistency, right? So this is all part of it. This is from John Gottman. Seek the good in others and let them know what you see. Yeah, we can see some bad stuff. They need to do this, they need to shape up, whatever it may be, but notice the good stuff and say it. I find that helps me more than when someone notices the bad stuff in me. Someone will say, hey, you're pretty good at that. Have you ever thought of doing, and that gives me encouragement, So we can try that on other people. Ask questions. Just like remember the two sisters that came into my office? And I said, ask your daughter questions and then sit back and listen. James 1:19. Be quick to listen and slow to speak. There's a time when I was talking to a gentleman, this is not in this province, and it was after I was speaking at a camp meeting, and he came up to me, very friendly guy, but he took over the conversation and talked for 20 minutes. All very helpful, good stuff. But there's people in line waiting to talk to me, and I was kind of a little anxious about wanting to see everybody. And the more he talked, and again, it was kind, good stories, the more I felt a barrier go up. And as nice as the guy was, what I felt was he wasn't asking me any questions. He was trying to tell me a lot of things, which I did appreciate, But at that moment, it wasn't appropriate. And so when we get into a situation where we sense that we're talking a lot to somebody, take a breath after a minute or two. Just see if they actually want you to talk some more. Because it may be that they're being polite. They're letting you talk because they don't want to hurt your feelings. They don't want to interrupt you. So they let you talk. But meanwhile, inside, you're separating. And they don't want to talk to you next time they see you. And so that's what happened with me and this other guy. And again, he was a nice man. It's just that he talked so much that I didn't want him to be dominated by him anymore. And I'm not really a dominating kind of person anyway. So learn courtesy. Learn to help other people. Laugh together. Merry heart, that's good like medicine. Learn to be kind. Respond to bids for attention and bids for connection. This is, again, John Gottman. I put this in the book. A man and a woman are sitting at a table, and the woman says, "Oh, look out the window, honey. The flowers are growing." Or look at that boat going down there. The man's response, it could be the other way around as well, woman's response, but in the case of man. The man can respond in 3 ways. How he responds can predict the success or failure of their marriage. Number 1, he could turn away. He could ignore her, just turn away. Number 2, he could turn against. He could say, "Can't you see I'm busy? I can't do that right now. I'm reading this newspaper," or whatever else. Turn against. Or he could turn toward. He could say, "Well, look at that. Look at those flowers. They're growing." Or look at that boat. Yeah, that's really something. So turn away, turn against, turn toward. So John Gottman had a love lab, a laboratory where newly married couples came in. And in one case, they stayed for 24 hours. They had cameras all over the place except the bathroom and bedroom. Cameras everywhere. They could hear them talking for 24 hours, except in the bathroom and bedroom. And they did this with 130 newlywed couples. This is in California. They do anything in California. So I would never do this because I don't want to be listened to by scientists, but apparently these people didn't mind. So then they observed this, a bid for connection. Like, "Honey, did you notice this? That's a bid for connection." Or, "Look at this, honey." That's a bid for connection. And then the 3 possible ways to respond. Okay, 6 years later, they checked back on these 130 couples. 17 of them had divorces, which is less than I thought actually it would be when I think about it, but that's what they said. And it makes me want to read the study in more detail to see what I missed. But here's the point. The 17 people who got divorces, they had that turning toward like 33% of the time. But the other ones who kept on with the successful marriage, they had the turning toward 86% of the time. So it's interesting that when someone you love, even a friend, doesn't have to be a spouse, is making a bid for connection, how we respond to that bid for connection will have a determining factor on our success in that relationship. Does that make sense? That was quite a study. That was quite an insight that they found there. It is written about in this book, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, a practical guide from the international best-selling relationship expert, John Gottman, and his wife, Julie. So use your talents to build up others. Thank you. What time is it? 4:01? Okay, I've got to really get going here. So whatever you're good at, use it to help other people. That'll help your relationships. Learn to listen. We talked about that. Here's some don'ts. Here's a boss. Here's an employee. That employee does not look like he's having a good time. That boss is not very happy with his employee there. Don't be judgmental. Don't make yourself the hero of every story. Unless you're telling dog stories, then it's okay. And then don't isolate yourself. Don't dominate the conversation, like I mentioned a moment ago. Don't be dogmatic, like insisting that your way is the only way. Don't demand. Regarding the dogmatic part, that's a big one. I like what someone once said. He was a politician. Not often I like what politicians say, but he said, what I like about that is, I could tell that he actually disagreed with the other guy. But he said, what I like about that is, so he found something to indicate that he's not being dogmatic. He's open, and he found something that he liked about it, even though he didn't like it all. My brother offended is harder to win than a strong city. This is a good relationship advice. When a brother is offended, you look up on the Hebrew word there, offended, it could mean he's humiliated. Offended, there's other words. I think I'll show them in a bit. He's wronged, he's insulted. And when we are offended or humiliated or wronged, the relationship is separating. So to get that relationship back again, the Bible actually says that it's harder to win than trying to attack a strong city. It's really hard to do that. And so that kind of reminded me of wounded egos or wounded emotions have rationalized unchristian behaviors. So a Christian who's supposedly loving, but if they're wounded, they feel justified in wounding other people. And so that's something that we need to be aware of, not be like that. It's interesting. Here's a doctor, here's a patient. They look pretty happy. But studies show that rude doctors, arrogant doctors, get sued more than the other ones, even though they're just as good as the other ones in their knowledge and health care, but the rude ones get sued more. Now, I think that's quite interesting, don't you? It had nothing to do with the fact that they got the wrong kind of medication or care in the hospital. It was the doctor was arrogant. He was rude, and he got sued more than the other doctors who may have made the same mistakes. So here we have the shocked doc right here. How dare you sue me? You know, I'm the best doctor in the world and all that stuff. It really makes a difference. Well, it caused me to think of this guy. His name is Tony Robinson. I'm going to quote him, then I'm going to quote something else. There are many situations in which we think we are the victim. This happens so many times. I'm the victim. You did me wrong. But in actuality, we are the creators. For our words and our attitude produced a defensive attitude in the other. Why? Because I was being offensive, I was attacking, I was being dogmatic. And it was the attitude that and it was this attitude in the other person that we created, but in the other person, that we interact with. And we think the guy is a jerk, when it's really us that was a jerk. And so we create the world that we are responding to. Now, here's a quote from Adventist Home that's just like it. Often it is our own attitude, the atmosphere that surrounds ourselves, which determines what is revealed to us in another. And so when it comes to relationships, this is a little bit of insight that we can think of. It may be the reason why I don't like that guy is because I myself am arrogant to him and he's just responding to my arrogance. And I think he's the jerk, but no, I'm the jerk instead. Excuse me.
Amos 3:3.
Can two walk together unless they be agreed? Amos 3:3 he's quoting, which is a very good relationship quote, isn't it? Can two walk together lest they all be agreed? I think I'll skip that, like that. Even in the world, in the secular world, join the compassion revolution. There are secular people, not even Christian people, I don't know, who's in charge of Maclean's magazine. There's an urgent call for more compassion as a last gasp remedy for systems at the brink. It almost reads like a last day events type of thing, right? Politics, healthcare, the planet itself. Excuse me. But do we have it in us? That's on the front cover of Maclean's magazine. Quite amazing. I'll skip that part, May as well skip all that part too, and I'll end up with Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown. Who's that guy talking to Charlie Brown there? Is that Linus? Linus, okay. Oh, is Linus the one with the blanket?
Yeah, he's the one with the blanket.
Oh, okay.
He looks like Linus, though.
We'll see. No blanket. Not sucking his thumb either. Anyway, he comes up to Charlie Brown. Boy, are you in trouble. You better get out of town. The girls are looking for you, Charlie Brown, and are they ever mad? And what would you do if you were Charlie Brown? He walks away. Charlie Brown's all by himself. The girls come. All right, you. The girls talk. Who's this talking first? Lucy. Lucy. You're the one we've been looking for. We're going to have this out right here and right now. Oh, boy. Charlie Brown's in trouble. What have you got to say for yourself? All the girls are saying. Now it's time for Charlie Brown to talk. Nothing. You girls are absolutely right. I'm glad to hear you feel this way. Huh. And the girls just turn around and walk away. What does Charlie Brown figure from that? Proverbs 15, verse 1. My soft answer hath turned away a whole flock of wrath. There you go. He helped the relationship. We could talk longer, but we won't. We'll just leave it at that for now. We'll talk about when we come back. I'll leave a few books, Pastor Don, because there's a few people asking. Maybe I can just leave some here with you. So we'll go from there. Any last questions, if I can answer, maybe in 35 seconds? Nobody. All right, over to you, Pastor Don, as we close up.
Father, we thank you for what we've learned, and we thank you for love in our lives. So work in us that love in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Too late.
Working in love. Thank you all very much. May God bless you.